Welcome to the Joyful Mate podcast. Join your joyful journey, mentor Anthony Hartcher, as we explore the path to inner joy and fulfillment. Each episode, we dive into the science of happiness, share personal insights, and invite you to be part of this interactive book writing adventure. Let's embark on this journey together. Let's make it happiness part of your everyday. Enjoy season 2 and note the improvements on season 1. Improved audio quality, making progress towards my happiness goal of book writing adventures. Welcome back to another insightful and exciting episode of Joyful Mate. I'm your host, Anthony Hartcher, the Joyful Journey Mentor, as I go on my book writing adventures on the Me and My happiness books. In the previous episode, episode 15, I shared the hierarchy of happiness, my pyramid that I'm creating in terms of the hierarchy as to what you need as foundations and then what you can build on to create more lasting and fulfilling happiness. So this episode, episode 16, is going to be an extension on the last episode. So it's going to be discussing the foundation, the very bottom of the pyramid, and the very top of the pyramid, based on some insights I gathered just overnight. So let's start with the very bottom of the pyramid. So in episode 15, I discussed the essential need to feel secure. And the more secure you feel, the more enabled you are to experience more episodes of happiness and more fulfillment, more life satisfaction, more contentment. The longer we stay in survival mode, we chase the more immediately gratifying forms of happiness, which aren't lasting and fulfilling and helpful long term. They create addictions and attachments. So we want to obviously create more of these lasting and fulfilling forms of happiness. So that's security. And I touched on that in episode 15. So episode 16 is an extension, and it's around the importance of sunlight. And without sunlight, we cannot make, we make less of the neurotransmitters that are essential for the feeling of happiness, such as serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. So they're really strongly associated, and there's other ones as well that are associated. There's GABA, there's an element of glutamate. So what happens when we get exposed to morning light? Our body converts melatonin into, it starts the cascade of tryptophan to serotonin. So melatonin starts to subside, which is the night hormone, the hormone of darkness, and then the body starts creating daytime hormones such as cortisol. So as melatonin falls after a night, as we start to arouse in the morning, it's falling, and cortisol is rising at the same time. So cortisol creates the wakefulness and melatonin keeps us sleepy, and there's an overlap. So we feel a bit drowsy when we wake up. So that's completely natural and normal to feel a bit drowsy as the melatonin is slowly breaking down and cortisol is rising. Now, what really assists this process is getting outside and allowing the retinas in the eyes to see morning light, because morning light has a much greater lux or a brightness factor that's a lot more than being indoors. And that exposure to the brightness really promotes this cascade of wakefulness. So we want to get outside first thing in the morning. We certainly don't want to look at devices. Devices are giving a miscommunication to the brain. It gets confused. And so we don't want confusion to the brain. We want the brain to be receiving coherent signals as opposed to incoherent signals. And so natural light is a coherent signal. It is a natural EMF, and we don't want to be exposing ourselves to too many non-native EMFs, such as mobile phones, as I'm recording on this device. But at the same time, I'm countering it with a native EMF, the sunlight. As you can see, I'm in the sunlight recording from my home outside. So it's really important that we get outside first thing in the morning and get that morning light, get that cascade of a wakefulness hitting us naturally, and we got that natural cortisol rise in the body. And so that will then, our body starts, upon seeing that morning light, it starts producing serotonin, the neurotransmitter that's associated with contentment, satisfaction, feeling good about ourselves, well-being. So serotonin is what we want to be making in the morning because we want to feel excited about the day or uplifted. It's an uplifting neurotransmitter. So we want to manufacture that and as much as possible in the morning to really help us make the most of daylight. So getting out in the morning, getting first sun is essential, and it's the foundation of the pyramid because that starts producing the neurotransmitter serotonin. It's also the time of the day there's less demands of us. So it's the time of the day that you can own the time and space in terms of what you do. So it's a great time to do reflective thinking and set intentions. So it's reflecting as to what you want to achieve and then setting the intention as to how you're going to go about achieving that for the day. So it can really set you in great stead for the day because you set your priorities, not someone else's priorities. And if you fill your day with your priorities, then when other people's priorities start trying to filter into your day, you can let them know that your day's full already of high priority actions that are fulfilling to you. And so it's easier to say no. It's easier to create that boundary, which is really important in terms of going up the pyramid. So the next run on the pyramid is that knowing thyself. Defining your day, setting your intentions enables you to set yourself up to focus on the high priority items that are fulfilling to you. And that gets you and starts defining who you are. I mean, it doesn't get you, but it starts defining who you are, allows others to understand who you are and to appreciate you for who you are and respect you for who you are. And so then you start moving up the pyramid of happiness. I like the pyramid idea. In episode 15, I wasn't sure if it was a ladder or pyramid. The reason why I like the pyramid is you need to set that really strong foundation in order to ascend. And there's a lot of items in that initial foundation of happiness, such as I mentioned yesterday, importance to have shelter, security, trust around us in terms of relationships, and the basic needs met, such as clothing, food, and then we can transcend from that point because we step out of survival mode. When we're in survival mode, we're going to chase more immediate gratifying forms of happiness, such as buying things, consumerism, alcohol, drugs, just temporary, real temporary, and not lasting and fulfilling. So as we transcend the happiness pyramid, then what happens is we start to experience more lasting, fulfilling, and more sustainable forms of happiness. So this is why I've got the pyramid concept. And so a foundation, as I just mentioned, is sunlight and getting out and getting the morning light and owning the day, because that enables you to step up the pyramid. And the other thing about morning light is what it does, well, just being outside. So let's define it as being outside, not necessarily, you don't have to be in the sun all day, just being outside. So being outside, we connect with native EMFs, and that connects us with the universe, and it connects us with universal consciousness being outside, because we are surrounding ourselves in, I guess, more native EMFs around us that are more in resonance with our body and who we are. And we get more in touch with ourselves and can tap into the universal consciousness when we're outside easier. So I'm just trying to work out how to best to say this. It's the first time I'm sharing this sort of information. So I'll obviously get better. And as I come up with a better way of sharing it and analogies, I'll share them with you, because that's what I'll be putting in the book. But I just need to get the thoughts down and recorded and take you on my journey to writing a book. So so being outside more often is a foundational part of the happiness pyramid, because ultimately, in order to transcend to the very top, we strive for the top, but we never actually, it's too hard to determine what the end result is. So for me, it's infinite. And I guess our expanse, as far as we're aware, the universe is infinite in terms of there's no boundaries. So again, the happiness pyramid's got to go on for infinite periods of time. There's no finite boundaries, and there's no boundaries around happiness. That's the other thing. Happiness to me is boundaryless, like love. It's so hard to define. And that's ultimately why this book is about you finding your happiness, because it's subjective too. It's based on the individual and the individual's values and what they want out of life. So Yeah, so in terms of being outside and tapping into that consciousness is really important because as we to rise up the pyramid, we need to feel at one with the universe. We need to have a sense that we are, in actual fact, part of this collective consciousness. And in terms of what we want to like, so we see we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are, right? So we see it through filters based on our past experiences. So, but to transcend this, we need to tap into the fact that there's unlimited possibilities, and there's unlimited possibilities in terms of how we can experience happiness and how we can experience the different forms of happiness is bound, there's no boundaries, and it's not finite, it's infinite. So we're transcending this pyramid, and the only way to transcend this pyramid is to tap into and integrate with that universal consciousness and not see us as separate, see us as one. And that's the way in which we do that, is seeing that we are in every, like, the more we see others and see everything as part of us, and we're all part of one, the more we can recognize we're part of this collective, and that there's unlimited possibilities to and ways to experience happiness. So as we transcend, we're going to experience more happiness, more contentment, more life satisfaction, because we feel at one and we don't feel separate. We don't feel detached. We feel at one. We feel everyone as a reflection of us. And the more we see us in others, then the more we feel connected. And so this is part of this ultimate relationship building, is that the more you can see yourself in others, the more connected you feel with others. So, for example, I've recently been working through Donald Trump. There's obviously, people have very surface opinions of Donald Trump based on the media. I've then thought, well, I want to see myself in Donald Trump and be able to connect at a more deeper level with Donald Trump. And so what I did is researched and started listening to longer forms of interviews and started to understand the traits of Donald Trump. And I've identified traits that Donald Trump has that I have. And so I feel more connected. I don't feel detached, and I feel more at one. And if we can do that with everything, with everyone, then we feel more at one. We feel more connected. And connection, in terms of the longest study ever conducted, the Harvard study on happiness, it's been running since 1938 from memory, and it started in Boston and studied, I guess, more affluent and less affluent people, and looked at all sorts of markers, biomarkers, and lifestyle, and looked at internal markers. Well, I said biomarkers, internal markers, and surveys, and interviewed loved ones. And yeah, so it was a really extensive interview. And what they found was that happiness was strongly correlated with relationships. And that's what I'm sharing, is that the more you can see yourself in others and feel that we're all one, all connected at the deepest level, that we there's things about us that we often deflect what we don't like about ourselves onto others. And so this will help you love yourself more. So the things that you're not liking about others is something that you're too shameful about within yourself, and therefore you see it in others, and it's a wake up to you to love it in yourself. And so this exercise will not only help you feel more at one or connected with the universe and others and everything, it will make you ultimately feel completely integrated, and you'll better love yourself. So this also helps with self-love, which is incredible. So this exercise is not only useful from a relationship point of view and improving relationships and deepening relationships, it also helps from a personal point of view in terms of loving everything, every part about yourself. So that's really important. To transcend the pyramid, we need to be seeing that we are part of this greater collective, and we are integrated. We're not separate to it. So the more we can do that exercise, and the more we can see ourselves in others and everything, and the more we can appreciate everyone and everything, and that's everything about them and everything about everything, we can start to better see things as they are. And the more we see things as they are, then the more we can ultimately have better full consciousness of what they are and see them as completely balanced and conserved, and that there's like pros and cons, ups and downs to everything and everyone. But it's just recognizing that we are all interconnected, and there's parts of you and others and parts of them and you, and it's appreciating the whole. So the more we can get connected with the whole and feel integrated with the whole, the stronger the relationship with self, and the stronger the relationship with others, and the stronger relationship with the universe. And that's the ultimate pinnacle of the happiness pyramid, is when you feel at one with everything and everyone. So that's what I wanted to share about the top of the pyramid and the bottom of the pyramid today. It's starting to form. The pyramid's starting to really come together in terms of just having time to think about it and then articulate it. So obviously my articulation of this will become better in time. But you've got to start somewhere. And I think that's the important thing about anything, is making a start. And I've made a start on this book. I've got momentum and thoughts are constantly coming to me. Activity. I'm just going to step out of the sun here just because my phone's overheating and the recording may stop. The other thing I wanted to mention was, in terms of that connection with everyone and everything, it's very interlinked to the bottom of the pyramid, because we need to be outside. We need to feel at one. So this morning, and this is a great tip and something I'd like you to take away, is when you're out and about. So I spend a lot of time walking the streets, and I spend a lot of time sitting on my front step, which is on the footpath, and a lot of neighbours are walking past me. And what I've found is, initially, just acknowledging people, they appreciate it, recognizing that they're there. And the more you smile and acknowledge and say good morning, the relationship starts to open up. And then people eventually, the more you do this, they eventually stop and you start chatting. And I found when both parties are outside in a relaxed environment, we're more open. We really open up ourselves because we feel more connected. There's not these non-native EMFs surrounding us that are putting up barriers between the connection. We are more connected because of the native EMFs that are surrounding us. And that leads me to needing to cover something at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of what I read in Popular Mechanics, which is a scientific journal. But anyway, I'll get to that. So just being outside, recognizing and acknowledging people, smiling at them, but just spending more time outside, you'll build stronger relationships and stronger connections. And that, according to the Harvard study, is one of the most fulfilling things to have in terms of having more happiness. So, and it's lasting, because obviously we are all one and all interconnected. So in summary, I really want you to spend more time outdoors, connect with others initially through a smile and eye contact and acknowledgement. Just say hi. Over time, that will develop into stopping and chatting, and our relationships evolve. And what you'll find is the outdoor conversations are so much more open and connected. So have more outdoor conversations, more outdoor meetings, spend more time outdoors, and that will help lay strong foundations in terms of transcending the pyramid. The other thing I read in this scientific journal was the fact that it was about, scientists now believe that consciousness is universal. So we are all interconnected through quantum waves, which is packets of energy being distributed by the sun. And so the more time you're outside, the more you tap into this universal consciousness. And what they found in the research was they were testing rats, and they were testing the microtubules in our brains. So we've got axons and myelin sheets around the axon, and they're connected to dendrites, and that's the synapses between nerve cells. What they found is there's microtubules, which are really tiny parts of our axons. And what they found was that when they stabilized these microtubules, the rats maintained consciousness, but when they allowed them to become unstable, the rats lost consciousness. So what they have realized is that the microtubules in our brain connect us with consciousness, and whilst they're stabilized, we're conscious. When they're unstabilized and deteriorating or dysfunctional, then obviously consciousness is lost. And what they realized is when they got light, visible light, they could shine it through the microtubules. So it obviously transducts or allows transmission of light through the microtubules. And what they worked out is that light wave photons that are traveling through the microtubules would have sufficient time to travel throughout the body, because an electron can be in a cloud of possibilities at any one time, and it's we actually, when we observe it, we collapse it, and it creates time and space coordinates. But before we observe it, it can be at infinite number of possibilities. And what's incredible is that there's superposition of electrons. So an electron can be at more than one place at any given moment. So the crazy thing is that I guess that conscious thought can then connect through universal consciousness and tap into someone else's consciousness. And that's because of this quantum entanglement as well as superposition of electrons. So in actual fact, I can be thinking something and the other person can have the same thought at the same time. So that's incredible. And it really starts to I start to think that the more we become one with the universe, the more we transcend our consciousness, and the more we can tap into unlimited possibilities of happiness and fulfillment and life satisfaction. That's it. That's the top of the pyramid, and that's ultimately what we all work towards. And so the takeaway actions from today's little recording, or episode 16, is to spend more time outdoors, to start building that stable foundation of the pyramid. That enables you to tap into native EMFs, which enable you to tap into the universal consciousness and feel at one with the universe. By spending more time outside, you'll interact with more people and connect with more people and build deeper relationships with more people. And that also makes us feel more at one and more connected. And so this will help you transcend happiness, because you will have more connections, and through those connections, you'll find more joy and life satisfaction and contentment. And I think the other exercise out of this podcast is certainly recognizing you and others and appreciating that we are all one, and that to have a stronger reflective awareness of seeing yourself in others, but appreciating that, and appreciating no matter what it is that you're observing, that it's got upsides and downsides, and it is what it is. And so those that you're struggling to connect with, then look for common traits, and they could be ones that you consider positive, but then you'll be aware of the negative ones, because that's why you're not connecting. So the negative ones are stopping you from connecting, but look for the common ground, look for the ones that you perceive as positive, and then you'll realize that yes, you've got some similarities, like I do with Trump. And then you'll have reflective awareness on the things that you perceive that you don't like about them, but they're things that you are not liking about yourself, but that person's just reminding you of it. So when you're observing something about Trump that you don't like, then it's looking at when you've done that and own it. And you want to keep looking until you can say, yes, I do that as much as Trump. So you balance it. You balance that and by balancing it, it enables us to see it as it is. We see both sides then. We see the up and the downside of it, and we can appreciate it for as it is. And it develops that deepest connection, because we see we're ultimately we're all part of this universal collective, conscious collectiveness. So yes, I've started a bit over this podcast. However, as I said, it's the beginning. It's got to be some start to sharing this information. So I've made a start, and I'll get better at articulating it, and I'll share it later on in a more articulated way once I start to process it better myself and think of better ways of sharing the message. So as I said, that's part of the book writing adventures. You get down a rough draft, and then you constantly work on that rough draft until it becomes quite polished. But as you're aware, perfectionism doesn't exist. So we just get it to a point where we're satisfied with it and we publish it. But obviously, we can always improve things on a regular basis. But at some point, you've got to draw a line in the sand, and you've got to, otherwise you could write a book forever and not publish anything. So I'm certainly in that process of getting first drafts down, finessing it, and articulating it in better ways, and that will come in time, and I'll share that with you. And thank you for coming along the journey with me on this book writing adventure. I hope you gathered some insights, certainly might have enlightened you to some concepts that you probably haven't come across. And I'll continue to expand on those concepts and find easier ways to explain them. Not easy concepts to explain, but I'll see if I can come across a model or a way in which I can explain it in a way that you'll understand it. Then again, it depends on where you're at with your journey and how far down the track you are, because if you're well down the track, then you've probably better understood what I'm trying to articulate. However, if you're just beginning, then this will be really far-fetched. So I guess in the beginning, you focus on the bottom of the pyramid. For those that have mastered the bottom of the pyramid, then they want to start exploring what I'm talking about. So I think it really is where you're at in the pyramid as to where you start. And what you want to do is make sure you work on getting the foundations before you try to ascend, because otherwise the ascension's going to be harder without the foundations, put it that way. So that's it for episode 16. Really appreciate you continuing to follow me and support me along my journey, and I'll continue to offer information and insights on happiness. Thank you.